This is a video response to a reply that's been given to me by Frater Oculus. Frater Oculus's video is entitled Christianity Destroyed Paganism. And yeah, it's a response to my video. I do apologize for this. This is like an unrehearsed video. As you can see, the lens has just fallen out of my spectacles. So essentially, just I'm going to look a little, well, my camera is going to look a little blurry to me because I can't see. Never mind. Now, one thing I will say to you, Frater Oculus, is I understand where you're coming from. All right, during the days when I was part of the pagan movement, and when I say part of the pagan movement, I mean, proper. I was attending the sabbats and the esbats. I was part of two Wiccan covens, and I really felt this sense of, well, wait a second, let me just get my spectacle screwdrivers, and I'm in my spectacles whilst I'm talking to you. Oh, here they are. Yeah, I really felt this sense of nostalgia. Okay, I felt this really strong sense of nostalgia for whatever the ancient, wisdom of the pagan people were. I felt to myself, I thought to myself, we've lost so much. I felt really sad at times when, we had, I think it was the Samhain festival in one particular column. Okay, and there was this guy who had this tapestry, and he got his wife to read out from the tapestry 9 names of people who died, killed, burned at the stake because of the evils of the Christians. Every name supposedly representing 9 million people who died. And I thought to myself, I really wanted to fight real hard, to help to resurrect all of the goodness and all of the beauty and all of the majesty of paganism. I really wanted to do that, I'd given myself to this culture. I was wrapped up in it. I loved it. Everything that was Celtic, everything that was seasonal. I watched The Wicker Man yet again. But of course, I was a bit too naive. I didn't really realize that the film The Wicker Man was just about murderers who were just killing because they were sick people. But after a while, I thought to myself, what am I being nostalgic about? I'm probably not related by blood to any of these pagans whose celebrations I'm following. Okay? I'm not related culturally because we don't really know what happened in those days. Because there's these would have been like very small minority groups who would have their own culture that they would have, created or made up within their own little village. And it would be in their own paganism, and the village down the road would do things completely differently and would believe things completely differently. Just like these days, you can go into a church and see two people who've been, joined the church at the same time, went through the same process, and both come out with two completely different interpretations of Christian theology. So essentially, I thought to myself, what precisely am I feeling nostalgic about? And I realized that this was part of the hegemony, part of the power control structure, which is in, or was in, modern day paganism way back in the 90s, to be a tool of conversion, to try and convert people to paganism. All of this mystery stuff, people, wearing green and suggesting that they were people of the forest and of the woods because that's what they were worshipping and revering. And I thought to myself, are they actually continuing with the ancient traditions? And the answer is no. What they are is following a new religion which was created in the 1950s, using things such as the spring equinox, which as it turns out is of course the Jewish festival of Passover, so it wasn't actually celebrated by the pagans within the Northern European area, apart from maybe in some tiny minority groups, but it certainly wasn't the pagan thing. And stuff was made up. And the same is true for all forms of modern day paganism. Now, the video that you're responding to was me basically saying that we're all one, we're all using the same kind of ideas. Really, we're just like approaching it from slightly different points of view. And I was just basically doing a kind of a not very eloquently expressed call to unity. All right, but from your point of view, Frater Oculus, where you are today appears to be where I was during the day when I was, going through paganism in that particular era. And I had taken on board this mythology of the 9 million women who were killed in the burning times. Of course, even the pagans today would say, no, that's actually factually inaccurate. Sorry, guys, we lied to you. And so you got to think about what other forms of inaccuracy is also present in paganism and in pagan thought. There is a certain quantity of conspiracy theory-esque ideology which goes through modern day paganism as well. It's that same way of thinking. There's a certain level of misrepresentation of the facts in order to try and strengthen the idea or hypothesis that whatever this thing is that we do is somehow directly connected to the ancestors. And I just don't see it there. Okay? Now, did Christianity destroy paganism? Well, believe it was the Eastern Orthodox Church that was not that didn't actually appear as a result of conquest, but it appeared because the ruler of the time just chose that his part of the world would follow one of the modern day new exciting religions which goes better with a more developed society. A choice, okay? Not conquest, but a ruler, a pagan ruler, choosing to adopt a more modern, up-to-date theology which would make the society better integrated. This is what I know as a result of my education, okay? Modern day paganism, as in that which is practiced today, not in the year 1000, okay, but after the year 2000, is by its nature something which fits into the new modern day culture. This new modern day culture is partially brought about by Judeo-Christian thinking, okay, which has allowed us to be able to eventually, after a fair number of disputes, battles, civil wars, and the rest of it, to be able to create, democracy. And of course, our wonderful industrial revolutions, which have helped the European landscape develop quite nicely. So we have a legacy of culture, which has been brought about by the Judeo-Christian people. Okay, this legacy of culture is pervasive, it is strong, and there is no real way of escaping it. The growth of Islam in the Western world has also been influenced by our culture. And so there's ways in which Islamic people practice within Britain, the USA, Australia, which is different than that which is practiced in various regions in the Middle East. Okay? That much we can definitely say. Okay? The same is true with paganism. Remember, the actual title is neo-paganism. And one of the ways in which these neo-pagans, or some of these neo-pagans, have learned to ideologically separate themselves from Judeo-Christian thinking is ironically through LaVeyan Satanism, and incorporating some of those ideas into their culture. Which is of course interesting because LaVeyan Satanism would have been heavily influenced, although negatively influenced, by the Judeo-Christian cultures. So I think what we can see here is a march of ideas which is progressing in a certain direction. There is, to the best of my knowledge, some movements within paganism to try and resurrect some of the thinking of the more superstitious pagans of yesteryear. This is, of course, disguised in magic and actually gives magic a bit of a bad name, predominantly because it is unscientific in its thinking and leans more heavily upon superstitious thoughts than an attempt to be rational, which is why I have been creating this channel to do two things. Number one, to stimulate people's interest in supernaturalism or spiritualism, as well as to apply a reason to it. And that is why I am a trans deist and will always be a trans deist, no matter which particular culture I'm a part of, rather than a literalist creationist theist. Okay? So, just wanted to clear that one up for you. So, did Christianity destroy paganism? The Roman emperors, when they became Christian, it was because of the growth of the popularity of the Christian cult within their area. Was it done by violence? And a lot of violence against Christians. And in fact, these days, today, Christians in some parts of the world are persecuted to the point of death, purely for their religion. Neo-pagans aren't persecuted to the point of death within the Western world. No, there may be the occasional thuggish gang out there who might attack one or two of them, yeah, sure. But on the other hand, that's not a massive war against them. Then there is a massive war against Christians in some parts of the world today, and people are dying. I can understand where you're coming from. I can understand a certain sense of desire to connect to something which you regard as your own culture. But you've also got to think to yourself very carefully whether this belief that these ideas are literally part of your culture is an idea which has been put your way by someone who has other political intentions behind the idea. Not necessarily your intentions, but maybe there was someone somewhere along the chain of ideas and ideologies who wanted to try and use it for a certain purpose. Such as ethnic nationalism, for instance. There are politically scary ideas in Christianity, yes, and they have to be fought. But likewise, there are also politically scary ideas in these founding principles of the modern-day pagan religions. And because these things are so closely allied to a sense of identity that people seem to have with paganism, it might be a little harder to shake. But someone's going to have to do it. And I don't think that I should be that person. My recommendation to yourself would be to look very closely at where you've got your ideas from. Think closely about how these ideas could be used. And also to be rational and critical of the ideas present within pagan culture. Remember, the ancient Mayans, they were pagans. And they controlled people through fear and living bloodshed and torment, reaching into someone's chest and pulling out their beating heart in front of other people. They weren't very nice people. And it would have been better for Christianity to defeat those people than it would be for them to carry on.